Hey, welcome Algebra 2. It's Mr. Thompson here, giving you your first homework video assignment of the 2015-2016 year. Get a few more of these, and all it is I'm going to give you a little notes through video camera. You can rewind it, repeat what I said, hear what I said again. You can watch the examples, and hopefully it'll save some time and we can use the class time a little bit more purposefully. So here's what we go. Today, first one is going to be on absolute value. Absolute value, hopefully, maybe it's been a year or so, you recall, is the distance a number is from 0. So if you think about a number line, and our good old 0 sitting right here, and I said, hey, give me two numbers that have an absolute value of 3, or are 3 spaces away from 0. Our numbers would be, well, 1, 2, 3, the number 3 is 3 spaces away. And so is negative 3. 1, 2, 3. So when we say what numbers have an absolute value of 3, we would have to say a positive and negative 3 do. By the way, how that looks, absolute value, if you remember, it has these straight bars around it. So we would look at this problem and say, read this, the absolute value of negative 3 is 3, or the absolute value of a positive 3 is also 3. So what we're going to do today is take this a step further. We're going to look at solving absolute value equations. Now, I'll give you a couple steps. Solving equations, we're going to turn them into linear equations, which you guys are good at, which you've seen before, which you know how to solve probably in your sleep at this stage. But absolute value equations, it takes one twist at the beginning before we solve it and make them easy. So what we're saying here is that the steps for solving absolute value equations, I'm going to give you 2 steps. Number 1, you want to isolate the absolute value. Okay. Get it, the absolute value part all alone by itself. Secondly, we will set up 2 equations, and I'll talk a little bit about that in a second. And then, like normal, we'll solve like normal, and then you check your answer by plugging it back in and seeing if it makes sense. So here's the first problem on your notes. We have the absolute value of a negative 3 plus k equals 10. What that's saying is, think about it. This is some number. So what numbers have an absolute value of 10? Step 1, isolate the absolute value. Absolute value is isolated. There's nothing added, subtracted, or multiplied to it. Step 2, we need to set up the equations. And again, here's why. We're really saying, we don't know what this is, but we're saying some number here has to have an absolute value of 10. And remember, there's always 2 numbers that have the same absolute value, positive and negative. So how we're going to set this up is as follows. The first one we just set up normal. We pretend like the absolute value bars aren't even there. So we say, all right, negative 3 plus k equals 10. We solve it like normal. Add 3 to both sides. And k equals 13, we think. And again, we can always check it. We take our original problem, and in place of k, we put a 13 there. And we just make sure, does negative 3 plus 13 give us a number that has an absolute value of 10? Check. Good answer. What else do we do? Well, the other situation we're going to look at is we're going to take what's inside the absolute value. So our second equation we're going to set up, step 2, is we're going to say what's inside the absolute value is equal to the opposite what's on the other side of the equal sign. Right. And once we set that up, we solve it like normal. Okay, so we add 3 and 3. K is going to equal a negative 7. And then check. Negative 3 plus, instead of plus k, we can now put that negative 7 in there. When we crunch those numbers together, that gives us a negative 10. It is the the absolute value of a negative 10, a positive 10, check, so we've done it right. So again, the two equations we set up, we pretend like there's no absolute value bars and just deal with the equation as normal. Secondly, we pretend the absolute value bars are not there, but we change the right side or the other side of the equation to the opposite of what it originally was. We'll try one more from your notes here. Same situation. This time what I'm going to do is I'm going to include that first step where we're going to have to isolate first of all. So if we have, say, the absolute value of x over 4, and I'm going to see what you guys have, minus 6 equals negative 2. Before we can set up our two equations, we need to isolate. We need to get the absolute value piece by itself. So we have to get rid of that number that's added or subtracted to it. So we're going to add 6 to both sides. That leaves us with an isolated absolute value, x over 4 equals 4. Once and only until that absolute value is isolated, are you set to now set up your two inequalities, or two equations, I should say. So again, our two equations, we can do x over 4 equals 4, pretending like the absolute value bars are not even there. And we can also set up the other one, x over 4 equals the opposite of the other side, negative 4, and we're set to solve. And if we solve these up, multiply both sides by 4, multiply both sides by 4, it gives us our result. It looks like x can equal a positive 16, and it looks like over here, x will equal a negative 16. And if we plop those in and check those out, we should be good. What I'm going to have you do now, at the end of these videos, I'm going to have a Google form that follows. Just a little questionnaire. I want you guys to try a few of those. I'll put the problems up on the board in a second. I want you to try these problems at home, submit them. And what happens is it comes through the computer. And tonight, what I'll do, or tomorrow morning, I'll check and I'll be like, okay, look at everybody knows how to do this. Sweet, we can move on. Or I'll look at them and say, man, half the people struggle. They're getting the wrong answers. What the heck is going on here? We got to focus on it more. Right? And the nice thing is, if everyone's doing it well, we can save time, move on, more homework time for you guys, which means less homework. So the other important thing you need to know for this, I always throw kind of a screwball question in. I'm going to let you know, Kylo Ren appears to be the new villain, possibly even a Sith Lord, in the new Star Wars The Force Awakens movie. Okay, Kylo Ren appears to be the new villain coming up in the Star Wars Force Awakens movie. Here are your questions. 3 questions, 2 math, 1 geeky question. Try these. I'll zoom in on them, submit them, and we'll catch you tomorrow in class. Zoom in, not out.